Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's info session for the insurance management program. Thanks again for taking the time to meet with us today and to not only learn about the insurance management program, but also about the insurance industry. So we're going to get started in a second. We've got a couple more people I'm sure that are going to show up because we did have a lot of people that actually registered for it, which is great. And just before we just kick into today's presentation, I'm going to go through a variety of different things, but I just wanted to quickly just introduce myself. I'll introduce myself as well as some of the other individuals that are helping support today's presentation in just a second. But I'll start off with just myself. My name is John McNeil. I'm the program coordinator of the insurance management program here at Humber. So let's get started. So in terms of today's agenda, we're just going to start off with a little bit of introduction and speaker information, just kind of give you an understanding of how today's session is going to go and how it's going to look like. After that, what we're going to do is kick right into what does an exciting career in insurance look like. Right now, I know that many of you are contemplating, do I go to school? Or maybe you've come out of school and you're looking at potentially getting into another industry. And a lot of people really don't roll out of bed in the morning and say, I want to be a commercial underwriter, or I want to be a claims adjuster, I want to be a broker. And as a result, I sometimes speak to my associate dean sometimes, and he says, insurance kind of lacks that glamour that we need to kind of really bring to it. It is a really great field to work in, and a lot of people that actually get into the industry like it so much that they actually stay in it, and they actually get their sons and their daughters and other family members involved in it as well. After we look at just what a career in insurance looks like, we're then going to look at the insurance management program overall. So we're going to look at a quick overview of the program, then give you a little bit of a quick update in terms of fall 2020 program delivery, because we did launch some very important information in respect to Humber a couple weeks back. I'll also provide you with an update on that. We'll then have a little bit of a question and answer period, and then we'll just end off. So let's just get started from an introduction and speaker information perspective. And before we do that, I just want to give you an understanding of essentially how today's session is going to take place. And so we do have a lot of people that are going to be joining us today, which is great because there's a lot of interest in the industry. And as much as we'd like to have all of you on the session today and talking and interacting with us, unfortunately, we have to have you on mute because it would be a little confusing if we had, 27 to 50 to 100 odd people speaking at the same time and trying to get everyone to, oh, you hold on. Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that. So we have you just on mute for a second. And what we'd ask you to do is if you have any questions whatsoever, and I'll talk about this in a second, a little bit more on the next slide that follows. But if you have any questions, just place it in the chat function and we'll address them immediately. So in terms of just conducting an optimal information session today, a couple things. As I mentioned to you before, questions. You're probably going to have a couple questions as we go through this session. And so what I'd ask is that you just place them in the chat function. I'm going to introduce my professor extraordinaire in just a second. Her name's Annette Palalis, and she's actually going to be monitoring the chat through the entire session today. And we're also going to have a Q&A session too, also at the end. From a technical difficulties perspective, if you experience any technical difficulties whatsoever, I'd ask you just please enter your challenges via the chat function, and we're going to try and do our very, very best to support you. So that is either both myself, Annette Palalis, or we also have a pretty awesome IT guy on the line too today, Jeremy, who's also going to not only be supporting me, but also might be able to support you if you have any issues. Just for your convenience, this session's also going to be recorded. So, we're hoping, and I'm going to be working with the Faculty of Business to have a link from this recording onto our program website. So, in addition to that, if you have any other additional questions, all the program and registration information about our program is on our program website. And in addition to that, we also even have a series of student that have even also gone through the program. We were actually hoping that some of them might be able to join in today, but unfortunately, due to the fact that they're working full time, they weren't able to be available. But we can certainly put you in touch with one of the students that has actually gone through the program. So let me introduce to you first one of the superstars in our program, and that is Annette Palalis. Annette's one of our professors in the insurance management program, and not only that too, but she's kind of like my right-hand person. She helps me out on pretty much everything, and she typically tends to be everyone's favorite professor as we go through the program. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, she's just pretty fantastic. She is going to be essentially on standby if you have any questions via the Q&A, and you know, if you have any questions about the program or anything like that, she'll be answering them. What I can tell you about Annette, I could probably go on forever and ever. She was actually the instructor of the year in 2018. And on top of that too, she's an experienced CIP instructor with more than 10 plus years of experience, teaching multiple various different courses. So my name is John McNeil. I'm the program coordinator and full-time professor of the Humber College Insurance Management postgraduate certificate program. I have my CIP just like Annette, and prior to my work at Humber College, I was a senior manager at RSA, where I was there for about 3 years. And prior to that, I actually worked for the Insurance Institute, which is the educational institute that oversees all the education for the property and casualty insurance field. I, like Annette, was the instructor of the year at GTA in 2017 and was also the instructor of the year at the Hamilton Niagara chapter in 2018. And I don't have 10 plus years of experience like Annette, but I do have about 7+ years. So one thing I also want to just let you know is that just not Annette and I and also some of the other faculty in the program not only just teach at Humber, but we also teach outside of Humber at for the Insurance Institute for a variety of different courses. So you know, some of you are probably thinking, you know, this is great. You know, if I wanted to think about doing this, you know, program be a year, but really, what is this? You know, at the end of this, what is my career in insurance going to look like? And when we first start to think about insurance, we think about, you know, this guy right here, which is, you know, this sleazy salesperson that calls you at supper time, and with that, you know, they're calling you at 5 o'clock and they're selling you insurance the same way as like the duct cleaning person calls you to bug you. And you think that this is what I'm going to be doing when I'm working in the industry, is bugging people to buy something that they don't need. Well, the fact is that is actually not the insurance industry. And what I can tell you is this is actually what the insurance industry looks like. The insurance industry is probably filled with about 42% of millennials right now. And with that, we're also probably seeing more and more people join the industry. Our industry moves fast, and the reason why is because our entire product is based on writing risk. It is based on basically providing people with peace of mind. If insurance didn't exist, you'd probably be paying 5 times or 6 times the amount that you would for your smartphone, or for your flat screen TVs, or for your clothing, or for anything. Insurance is literally everywhere. All right, it is, you literally can buy insurance on anything, and if not, the supplier that's actually sold you the goods also has insurance in case something happens there. But you just look at some of these photos on the screen, and what I can tell you is that, you know, we use and leverage a variety of different technologies, and some of the things that we have to deal with, everything from cybersecurity right down to severe weather, and even right in the trenches when it came to the pandemic and COVID-19. You know, you look at one of these pictures, which is a drone. Back in back a couple years back, where we started to look at Fort McMurray and the Fort McMurray wildfires that actually cost our insurance industry $50 billion. Aside from having our first responders show up on site and handling the catastrophe that happened in Fort Mac, and it was something that we've never seen before, where we actually saw a fire actually jump a river that was close to a half a mile long. We actually couldn't go on site. Our claims adjusters, we were second out on site, and that was the industry. We were right behind first responders, it being, obviously ambulance, fire, and police. But we sent out a series of drones to actually go out and inspect and look at the various different locations and this was most companies that actually did this, to actually look at and understand which buildings had actually been burnt down. So what I can also tell you about the industry is that it's actually been around for about 500 years. The last company that I worked for, which was Royal Sun Alliance, we wrote insurance on a variety of really cool things, right down to such things as, like, we wrote, Captain Cook's Voyage. We wrote, we also wrote, Darwin's Cottage in the Caribbean. And we also wrote the Titanic, and that really didn't work out for us, but it's still kind of an interesting statistic. We also write insurance on everything. So we will literally write insurance on anything from, obviously a home and an automobile like you're used to, or a commercial building. We write insurance on mines. We write insurance on everything right up to fighter jets. We also even write insurance on superstars. So some of you are probably really big soccer fans, and what I can tell you is that Cristiano Ronaldo's legs are actually insured for about $25 million. Beyonce's legs are actually insured. We've even insured Tom Jones' chest hair. So a lot of really wacky insurance out there, right down to, there's even an insurance company in the States in Florida that actually even insures UFO encounters. You have about 240 to 280 policyholders. Now, there's roughly, if bringing it back into Canada from an insurance perspective, there's about 125,000 people working in the industry right now. Roughly about just over 200 to 240 insurance companies in Canada. Anything from a very large company like Intact right down to a very small mutual. You have roughly about and this number also fluctuates too, about 50,000 brokers and agents working as trusted advisors in Canada, and about 12,000 jobs were actually added since the last recession. Now, what's really, really interesting is that people actually have to purchase our product. They have to purchase it for to buy a car and to drive one. They have to purchase it if they want a mortgage. They also have to purchase it if they want a small business loan. And so a lot of times people will actually say that our industry is actually recession proof. Now, 5 of the top 20 richest companies in Canada are also insurance companies. And with that, they also give back. They give back a ton of ways back to the communities, also back through taxes. And as I just mentioned to you before, also through employment. We also have 4 insurance companies that have been awarded top places to work in Canada, and more that join that group, every year, and several also nominated as a top employer of young people. Our job demographics are also amazing. As I mentioned before, about 42% to 39% of insurance professionals are millennials. And what we also look at right now is you think right now that the overall general demographic of the industry is what? A white male, someone like myself, and that's actually not the case. If you were to take a snapshot of what kind of the industry poster person looks like, it would actually be a 42-year-old female. So 62% of our industry are actually made up of women. And it's women in a variety of different roles, right up to executives and CEOs that are running companies, and some of the top ones. So why choose a career in the insurance industry? And what I can tell you is that it provides a variety of different benefits. One, as I mentioned to you before, it's even been murmured that this industry is recession proof. It is a very, very stable career. So much so that when people get into it, they stay in it forever. And as I mentioned, will bring their sons and their daughters and their friends and their family into the industry to work. There are some brokerages that are even working off, legacies of about 7 different generations, which is amazing to see. Also is a great industry that also provides you with a series of rewards. So, I can tell you that insurance companies, brokers, they're all really, really big on continuing education. And the reason why is our industry is constantly changing. So there is pretty much, I would say, most companies that I know of do have an educational insurance, policy to support you into education. Most companies have bonuses. Even at RSA, when I worked there, I was even able to write off some of my sports equipment. I'm a big baseball player, and so I was able to write off some of my baseball equipment. So they take care of you, and the benefits are phenomenal too as well. Now, one of the other really attractive benefits of working in the insurance industry is the advancement opportunities. I have never seen an industry where I've seen people literally start off at the bottom as an intern, and now I see them in senior vice president roles. If you have talent, and you work hard, and you're determined, and you're ambitious, this is an industry where there is an elevator that goes all the way to the top. And a lot of people that have started in the industry, as I mentioned before, have come in as interns from universities or through college programs. The other very attractive thing is variety. If you get into the industry and you don't like the role that you're in, you can easily go into another role almost seamlessly. If you start off as a broker, you're going to be working not only with customers, you're going to be handling claims, you're going to be a frontline underwriter to a certain extent. And so this will provide you with a lot of experience. Same way as if you tried starting off in a company. And the other great thing about the insurance industry and insurance companies in terms of a structure perspective is that they actually have 3 unique departments that are unique to the insurance company structure. And that is actuarial, underwriting, and claims. We're built like all the other companies, in business that have a finance and an HR and projects and procurement and operations, but we also have 3 other departments that are pretty big and are massive and obviously help us conduct our promise, which is our insurance promise. Also community. And so what I can tell you is that when I worked at RSA, I had a chance to travel. I went everywhere from, across Canada, opportunities even go to Europe, because a lot of the insurance companies that are actually doing business right now in Canada are located in the UK or are located elsewhere. Now, obviously right now with the pandemic, travel has obviously cooled off, but this also means that you'll be interacting with these people around the world. I was part of, before I left, I was part of a variety of different teams where I was constantly meeting with people in Norway. I was constantly meeting with people in Switzerland, the UK, Ireland, and the Middle East. And it was pretty awesome just to even collaborate with people globally. And then lastly, challenge. The one thing that's pretty amazing about this industry is that it's based on a promise. The promise to pay if some of the worst things in the world actually happen to you. So that might be a flood, that might be a car accident, all right? And we promise to take care of you. And the thing is that when people have to use our product, as I mentioned before, the worst things have happened to them. This includes actually even going through the front windshield of a car. So when you see all these massive accidents and you see all these, severe weather situations that happen around the world, yes, it is the fire and the police departments and the ambulances that show up, the frontline workers at the beginning, but it's our claims adjusters and our companies that are actually putting those people's lives back together. I had a really good friend who is an adjuster who said, the police and the fire and the doctors, they get all the love. If there's a car accident or there's a house that burns down, all these people are gone within 24 hours. But I'm sitting here, the claims adjuster, across from them, trying to essentially put these people, this young family's life back together. So there's a massive, massive challenge because not only are we trying to make money off risk, because that's our business, the same way as, Toys R Us sells toys or Best Buy sells technology, we sell a promise and we have to back that promise up and we have to fulfill it. And that's a challenge. Now I've talked about a couple different roles in the industry, and there are a variety of them. And like I said, if you get into one and you don't like it, maybe you start off as a broker and you want to go on and work for a company, you certainly can do that and get into an underwriting role. And if you don't like underwriting, you can go to claims. And if you don't like claims, you could maybe get into special projects. If you don't like special projects, maybe you get into loss control, which is, if I really had to look and tell you what these are, brokers and agents are those that are trusted advisors that are really working with customers to help ensure that they have the right insurance solution. Underwriters are those individuals that are helping companies write risk, and they're putting money behind these risks. And if something happens, it is the claims adjuster, which is the next role, which is essentially helping people put their lives back together and helping people through a claim and supporting them. Marketing representatives are those that are looking at obviously marketing the product, and not only just with brokers, but also with customers. Loss control specialists are essentially an offshoot of the underwriting role, where obviously people are actually going on site and they're checking out sites to look at, inspecting it and learning all about it to look at various different risks. This could be in a commercial or even in a personal situation, such as a home or a commercial building. Appraisers are those that go on site and look at either a damaged car. They might even look at jewelry to appraise if something was to happen, how much it would cost to replace it. Actuaries are those that put a price on insurance. Claims investigators have a very interesting role. They work very, very closely with claims adjusters. And the reason why is because they're trying to find out all the fraud that happens. There's a lot of fraud that actually happens in insurance. A lot of people think that they've been paying into it for a long time, and that once they have a claim, this is a great way of essentially trying to get all of their money back, or they think they've put into an account that they have access to. And that's not the case. And as a result, some people think that it's okay to scam the insurance company, and this comes right down to false injuries, staged accidents, and to try and see whatever they can do to essentially try and draw as many funds as they can from a claim. Risk managers are a very, very hot role right now. And the reason why is because it is risk managers that are actually on the front lines that are, working with the government and setting up, social distancing and safe sites for, the LCBO and for retail and for malls. It's the risk managers that are essentially helping industry right now get back on their feet and conduct business. Now, one thing, as I mentioned before, some of you, might be considering a job in this industry, and this is another thing to consider, and that is within the next 5 to 10 years, about 27 to 30% of the industry is actually deemed to retire. Of that 27 to 35% of it, those are in management roles. So if you're actually looking at getting into the industry right now, it is an absolutely perfect time. Because as I mentioned, a lot of people get into this industry and they stay in these industries. I've mentioned such things such as underwriting and claims and actuarial. These are departments, but at the end of the day, they're really disciplines. And you can be doing these roles forever if you wanted to and still never, ever master them. The same way as even being a broker. These are all disciplines. And so you have a lot of these people that have been in these roles for a very, very long time, and they're leaving with their technical expertise. And so the industry right now, we are trying to hire right now like crazy. We're not even just in a talent shortage, we're in a talent crisis. And when I talk to you about the 35% of management roles, if you get into the industry right now, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, if you work hard, you could potentially be leading a team. Now, we talked about the insurance industry. When we look at risk management, 75% of the existing risk management industry right now is actually within the ages of about 50 to 55 and are looking at retiring the next couple years. So they actually anticipate on top of that, that this industry is actually even going to grow by 19%. 30% higher retiring rate too in the economy, which is like compared to the rest of the economy, this is actually a 30% higher retiring rate, which is absolutely crazy. We had a risk manager come in this year to speak to our students, and it's a phenomenal industry to get into, but nobody really thinks about it. The other thing too is that all major companies, if they don't have one right now, have started creating a risk management either department or team to help deal with just even COVID-19. And not even to mention cybersecurity. As I mentioned, we had a risk manager come on site to speak to our students. I said to him, what is your your typical risk looks like? And he happened to work with risk managers can work with, there are risk managers that work not only with companies, and that is insurance companies, but they also work with just general companies, such as the LCBO, Metrolinx, grocery stores like Metro or Fortinos. They all have risk management firms. Toronto Hydro, they all have risk management firms. And when I asked this risk manager that came in, said, what does your typical day look like? Or what is your average claim? And he said, actually, one of my average new claims right now is actually dealing with cybersecurity. We have all these condos downtown right now where you actually have to use a fob to get in through the front door, and then another fob to get into your your condo unit. Well, what sometimes will happen with cyber criminals is they'll actually hack into the building on a day like today or last couple of days where it's been 30 degrees, shut down all the elevators, shut down all the air conditioning, lock people in the room, and lock down the parking lot and demand a $20,000 ransom by 12 o'clock in Bitcoin. And so it's the risk managers that are not only helping with these situations as they arise in the moment, but they're also looking at building out contingency plans to make sure that if something was to happen like this or the pandemic, that a company can respond or prevent these risks from occurring. So the other thing too is this, is I've mentioned a lot about insurance in respect to the pandemic. And one thing that I can tell you is the insurance and risk management actual departments and fields were actually deemed essential service by the government. It was great, and as a result, our brokers, our companies, we were actually deemed essential services, and we had to be there. We had to be going into work, and not all of us could go to companies. And so what ended up happening is I would say about 90% of the industry professionals have been working from a very safe place in their home. And I'm lucky, I've got 4 kids. They're not here right now, but I too was working from home. Same with all of my professors. But it is a safe industry to work in, and I say about 90% because we did have a couple catastrophes, such as some floods in Alberta, where some of our claims adjusters had to go in. But both industries have also been in high demand. All right, brokers were being called constantly from customers in terms of what insurance coverage they had, and also looking for advice as their trusted advisors. We also saw a lot of business. There was a lot of business that did come through the front door. Some for companies, others in with special underwriting firms. What we also noticed is that our companies didn't shut down. Some companies hiring overall. Some of them maybe said, right now we'll probably not going to be hiring, but we will be looking at talking to you in the next couple months. Whereas other companies and some brokers in particular, came forward and said, hey, look, we want to hire students right now, and can I have some resumes? And Annette can agree with me. We literally saw through the entire pandemic, students every week, 2, 3, 4, 5, being offered full-time and extended full-time offers. And it was awesome. Some of them even received multiple offers and they had to make a decision. Or some were being hired and a couple days later being contacted by another company or broker and, literally within days of signing the offer. The other thing too that was pretty awesome is that, we weren't just behind the desks all the time. A lot of our brokers and our companies, I saw a lot of broker initiatives and a lot of company initiatives, which were great. They were out in the community and they were helping out with charities and they were helping out with community-based initiatives and events to essentially support, those less fortunate during the pandemic. Now, this might be anything from supporting frontline workers to, distributing, personal protective equipment, but they were out trying to make a difference in their community. And that's the thing. That's what our industry is all about. It's all about making a difference. And it's essentially trying to help people when they are in essentially having the worst days of their life, all right, and the most vulnerable. Now, I can tell you, I've been in, I'll knock on wood, a couple different accidents over the last couple years. And the first person that I always call, and I always say this to a group of live audience, a lot of people are like, you probably called your wife. She's not here right now, and you would think that's pretty much who I would call. She's one of my first calls. But the first person I always call is my broker. And he typically always helps me out. I was in a really bad accident about 200 meters from Humber. I hit another professor. I got to know him, but I called my broker right away. He took care of me. He within 24 hours, he had a tow truck at my driveway, picking up my car, a rental car in the driveway for me to use too as well. And for me, that means a lot. And he was checking on me to make sure I was okay and that the claims process was taken care of. Same with my adjuster too as well. But the fact is that I've got to get my girls to dance and my son to baseball and lacrosse, and I need to have transportation. And both of them made sure that my life didn't skip a beat at a time when I needed it most. So hopefully I've got you a little excited about the insurance industry. Let's talk a little bit about the insurance management program at Humber. So why would you consider our program? And really at the end of the day, what I can tell you is that it's an accelerated program. You can say the program's about 1 year. It's typically about 8 months. It requires a bachelor's degree or a minimum advanced diploma or diploma from an Ontario institution. It's also one of the first insurance management programs in Canada. And the program, if I really had to tell you, is it really is an accelerated program that really will slingshot you right into the industry. The program is not only recognized by the Insurance Institute of Canada, but it's also recognized by REBIL, the Registered Insurance Brokers of Ontario. So students actually do qualify for the modified exam to write as a broker. Now, when you graduate with us, not only are you either coming in with a bachelor's degree or a diploma, but we also arm you and complement that great work that you've done with a postgraduate certificate in insurance management, 7 CIPs, which is your essentially credits towards the Chartered Insurance Professional designation, and a REBIL Level 1 license. So let's have a look at that. So our program is 2 semesters. Semester 1, we provide you with a couple of different courses, such as, computer analytics skills course. We teach you the number side of things on the accounting metrics for course 2 as well. And then there are 3 specific CIPs that we start to get you to learn, such as auto insurance. We teach you about the principles and foundations of insurance. And then we teach you about liability. And then we also teach you about the sales and marketing element of insurance. And then we also look to build you up in a career. That's a course that I teach, where I teach you all about the professionalism, how to interview for an industry role, and also how to build a resume that can speak to an insurance company or to a broker and what they're looking for. In semester 2, we teach you about insurance leadership and the leadership that you'll need if you do become a leader, or even if you decide to lead a project. We also teach you insurance on property, and then we provide you with the essential skills and allow you to kind of get in the driver's seat of what skills do you need as a broker, what skills do you need as an adjuster, what skills do you need as an underwriter. And then we also teach you project management. And the last element is the work placement piece. So You actually have to do 160 work hours within the industry. We do help you with that. We do bring in a variety of different work placements in to help you out with that. But at the end of the day, it also provides you with some work experience so that when you go to work in the industry, you've either worked on a special project, or you've worked for a broker, or you've worked for an insurance company. So I've been mentioning this designation called the CIP, and the CIP really at the end of the day is the designation in the industry. It's similar to basically a chartered accountant's designation. If you really want to look at it, you actually get a gold pin. I'm not wearing mine today because I typically wear it on my suit, but it's hot out today. But it's essentially the benchmark of insurance professionalism within the industry. And once you have your CIP, and once you have your experience, and even your REBO, if you're an Ontario broker, you're pretty much bulletproof in terms of trying to get a career. You will literally, if you apply anywhere, you will literally get a phone call for an interview. Now, the designation itself requires 10 credits. So there's 5 mandatory credits, 3 applied professionals, and 2 electives. We actually give you 7 of those 10. And what's pretty amazing, as I mentioned to you before, in terms of the continuing education policy that a lot of companies have as one of their benefits, is that they typically sponsor you on the other 3. And when they look to offer you a role in the industry, they'll typically, say, hey, look, we'll pay for your additional 3 CIPs. And then you graduate within about a year to a year and a half what you want. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a designation that is highly sought after in the industry. There's even studies done by the Conference Board of Canada that 71% of the employers actually agree that job candidates with a CIP designation are of more interest when they're actually looking at recruiting talent. Now, I've been mentioning this other thing called REBO. If you're looking at becoming a broker or starting off, or if you even, maybe you're not even sure what you're looking at what you want to do, we actually have a fantastic partnership with the Insurance Brokers Association of Ontario, where we actually get you your license. So when you graduate, not only do you have a postgraduate certificate program from a best-in-class institution like Humber, you also have 7 credits towards your CIP, and you have your REBO license. Part of our partnership with IBAO is they actually will be paying for your license, as well as your study materials and prep course materials. And not only that too, but they also have a variety of different awesome initiatives where you'll be welcome to their convention. This year their convention is virtual, but they also even have a mentoring program where you'll be you have a chance to be paired up with a thought leader in the industry who will help mentor you. A lot of my students right now still have connections with their mentors and are speaking to their mentors and looking for guidance and thought leadership from them. So really, if you had to look at it, why choose us? What I can tell you is that, number one, we are based on academic excellence. I praised Annette at the beginning of our program of this information session, and I really have to say that our faculty is literally put together with some of the top individuals that teach CIP. Not only do we teach at Humber, but we also teach the CIP outside of the program. But we really will push you. We really want to make sure that you get those CIP credits and that you graduate with the Humber postgraduate certificate, and also even with REBO. But along the way, what I can tell you, if you ever want to speak to one of our students, you will meet so many companies that you'll lose track of them. Probably need to buy a notebook just to keep track of names. We do so many different events and so many different events and opportunities where you'll actually have a chance to not only meet insurance companies and brokers and agencies and claims adjusting firms and risk managers. We even have partnerships with some of the associations, as I mentioned before, with IBAO, also with the Ontario Risk Insurance Management Society, and also with the claims adjusting, the OIAA Claims Adjusting Association. We will also mentor you along the way. One thing I can tell you about our faculty is that we are 1000% student-centered. We will go out of our way for our students. So much so that some of us are even taking phone calls late at night because we want to support them. We went above and beyond for our students during COVID-19 because we really wanted to make sure that they were supported. We had about 3 to 4 or 5 weeks left of our semester. We did so many different events to try and support them because just like all of us, they were isolated as well, some of them in basement apartments. We wanted to make sure they were okay. We were having phone calls with them every week. We will also help you get the CIP. Obviously, you got to do your part, but we will provide you with the necessary guidance you need to get the CIP. And we'll provide you also with the essential knowledge and skills that you'll need to make your mark on the industry. Now, the stat that I'm going to provide you right now is actually not from this year, but from last year. This year was a little bit different just because we had COVID-19, but what I can tell you is last year, we had about 100% of our students, they're actually hired before the end of the first semester, which was pretty attractive. This year was a little bit different just because things were slowed down with pandemic, but I'm sure we probably would have seen something very, very similar to this. Overall, from a stats perspective, and I'll just let you have a look at this while I just take a sip of water. But 95% of our students that typically come into our program typically end up and are placed in the industry, either through their own work placements or through full-time roles. Many students are getting multiple offers in the second semester, and some are like we even had last year, students get jobs within the first 3 weeks of the program. Now, our pass ratio right here is about 80%, and this was typically from our first couple of years, but last year, this is the year that just passed, we actually smashed this statistic. And some of our pass ratios were actually in the high 90s. We also have, just in our last 2 years, we had a smaller cohort, but this year we had a very large one. We had about 19 to 20 of our students make the dean's list just in 1 year. This year, I haven't had a chance to get the statistics yet, but I know that number has actually gone north, if not even doubled. Now, if you're wondering, I'm going back to school, is this for me? And, I always like to kind of use a student profile, and one of them is a gentleman by the name of Zequan Pan. His name is, where he goes by Harold. This gentleman actually came into our program our first year, knew nothing about the insurance industry at all, absolutely nothing. And with that, he did so well, he actually won about 4 to 5 different awards and was actually the top full-time academic insurance student in Canada. Right now, he's a full-time claims adjuster at RSA, where he's actually handling government claims. He hadn't actually picked up a book in like 12 years and really took to insurance, really liked it. And the thing is that the one thing is that when you say the word insurance, even the word itself doesn't do it service. But you have to realize that this industry draws from so many disciplines. It draws from the economics, it draws from legal, it draws from the healthcare world, it draws from the consumer goods world, it draws from so many different worlds, the IT world. It doesn't matter what your degree is in, it does not matter what your diploma is in. You will be able to use those skills in the industry, and those will be transferable skills. The other thing too is if you're not even from Canada, that's also even a bonus. And the reason why is because if you speak multiple languages, that's a plus. Because sometimes when people have to phone in for a claim, they don't want to speak in English. They want to use their mother tongue or a language that they feel a lot more comfortable in. And so if you're able to speak that language, that's a bonus. Here are some of the companies that our students ended up at. This was anywhere, you can see, and this list right now, probably you don't even have any more white space left because students have pretty much ended up everywhere. All different companies, adjusting firms, brokers. We're now starting to get Humber graduates, and Annette could agree with me, pretty much in most companies. So just to announce, just due to COVID-19 and the pandemic, I wanted to just give you a little bit of an update about fall 2020 program delivery. And our program itself will be delivered online. Now, for some people right away, they're like, well, it's not something I really want. Well, if you kind of look at it, it's actually a bonus. You know, if you're a domestic student, you don't have to drive. You actually don't have to drive and buy a parking pass. You don't have to worry about the commute here. Probably you could even get a part-time job and even work a couple more hours on top of that. You know, I mentioned to you that here that our program will offer advanced flexibility and advanced student support. All of our group of virtual professors, and I can tell you that on our faculty we have 3 professors that have actually won Instructor of the Year by the Insurance Institute. One of them actually won it twice. And 3 of those instructors, we all teach online. So when we had to teach online for COVID-19, it was like no problem, right? And so for us, all these pass ratios that I've showed you already with Humber, we achieved those teaching CIP online already. If not, some of them are even higher. And we're dealing with groups of students upwards of about 40 to 45 students that are in the industry and some that are not. And so if you can't, I mentioned the flexibility, if you can't make class, obviously that will be recorded, but you'll have so many different touch points with your professors and with the industry that our program's really probably not going to skip a beat. It will probably be that much more advanced. You're going to have so many different company introductions. There's going to be a mentor program from a series of associations, job and employment fairs, and industry experts and leader discussions too as well. So we're just going to bring it to the question and answer period, and just got a little bit of a note from Annette that we've got a couple questions. So why don't we just open it up to questions right now, and hopefully I got you interested about this great industry and also about this great program that can help you support an exciting career in insurance.
Hi everyone. Hi John. So our first question that we're being asked is, how do you think co-op will work next year, being that it's a pandemic?
Great question. And so as the pandemic hit, there were many students that were actually already working in in an office, and right away when the pandemic hit, many of these students, their co-op opportunities were actually moved to an online format. And the other thing too is we've had the entire summer and spring, so spring and summer, for companies and for brokers and for agencies to really understand how to work, hire, and train during the pandemic. And so, companies hadn't completely figured it out because it's obviously something we've never seen before. But right now, people are going back to work, and it's either virtually or in person. So I really don't see any issues with the work placement. The only thing I could see is that you'll probably be just given some guidelines from a social distancing perspective just to keep safe. But I don't really see it slowing down co-op. I actually probably see that the work placement co-op is actually probably going to be, we're probably going to see a lot of it. There's probably going to be a lot of opportunities.
Thanks, John. I also have a question about English testing and being able to get that done because of the current pandemic situation. Also about visas required to start the program online. So I'm thinking that this is a get in touch with the registrations office.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I'll actually I'll provide you with my email address at the end, and I unfortunately forgot to put it in the presentation. But what I'd ask is that you just connect with me, and even connect either with me via email, and even connect with myself or Annette over LinkedIn. But we'll put you in touch with the registrar, and instead of going through, the front door as you normally would, I'll escalate your request to the registrar to make sure that you're taken care of immediately. And the other thing too is in terms of the English testing piece, a lot of the English testing right now, we know that a lot of the facilities around the world, and even some of them in Canada, have actually been closed. They're slowly starting to open, but there are a lot of online testing solutions that you can take advantage of. And if you want to reach out to me, if I don't know them, I'll certainly get the answer for you.
John, we're also being asked about class times. Do I need to log in every day in real time? What if I'm working?
Yeah, so if you're working, as I mentioned to you before, all the classes will be recorded. If you want to listen live and listen to a superstar like Annette, in terms of and take part in her live lecture, but if for some reason something comes up or you get called into work and you can't take part, look, right now, I got my kids, so I completely understand what it looks like in terms of working and also, looking after my kids. Your sessions are going to be recorded. You'll also have, if you miss speaking to, or listening to one of your professors live, you'll also even have a chance to speak to your professor at a specific time, and that's in the CIP area. So, maybe you don't understand a term and you want to speak to a professor like Annette or another one of our professors in our program, you'll have an opportunity to do that. So if you can't make class, not to worry, it'll be recorded. But if you do want to take part in a session that's live, those sessions will typically be held later on in the evening or in mid-afternoon. Majority of our classes don't really start until about 2:30 in the afternoon, and that is because a majority of our faculty are actually working full-time. So our classes typically start at about 2:30 in the fall and then go upwards right up until about 9 o'clock. And even if you're tired and maybe you go through maybe you go to your first class, but the next class you got to look after your kids, or you got to work, or maybe you're just tired, that class is going to be recorded, so not to worry.
Awesome. Does anyone have any more questions they would like to ask? Oh, I think someone's just placed a question here. Let me get down to that. Okay. What are the starting salaries students can expect after graduating from this program?
Yeah, not a problem. So really great statistic I actually saw from the Haskane School of Business in Risk and Management. And so typically about starting salaries are anywhere, we've seen starting salaries, and this is even during the pandemic, anywhere between about 40,000 upwards of about low 50s to get started with. That includes your CIPs being paid for. That also includes in that benefits and bonus and even sales commission if you're a broker. Now the other thing too that the very interesting stat that I mentioned that I saw at Haskane's School of Business is that they actually showed a stat of in the next 5 years. They say the average salary is actually upwards of about 80 to 100,000, if not more, which I saw was really interesting. So so that's working the industry in about 5 years, and so that was a stat that I got from their website. That was pretty interesting.
John, we're also being asked if this program qualifies for OSAP.
It sure does.
Then I have another question here saying, for the CIP designation, for each CIP course, do I need to do 2 exams, a Humber exam and the Insurance Institute exam?
Yeah, great question. And so we actually use the same, you do. And what we actually do is we actually use the Humber exams as almost like a preparation exam for the IIC exam. We actually give you a week off during the IIC exams so you can do your CIP IIC exams. So you'll do your Humber exam first, and then you'll do your IIC CIP exam. We use the same books. You will be tested on the same material, but we almost use it as a preparation tool. So you go through your CIP exam first, and with that, you can then make some adjustments and maybe I need to study a little bit here, or maybe I need to study a little bit more there. But we have actually found by structuring the Humber CIP, the Humber exam first before the CIP exam, the success rates we've seen have been very, very high. And that's because we position it that way. So you actually get a week off to write your CIP exam.
John, we're being asked about the status of the September 2020 applications for international students. Are they still taking applications?
Yes, we do. We still have a lot of openings. We still do have some openings for the program. So yeah, definitely taking applications.
Any other questions? I don't have anything else popping up right now. Oh, let's go. Could you give a rough estimate as to how much the textbooks will cost?
So as a Humber student, you actually get a couple different perks. One, so typically CIP textbooks are about $200. They just went through a very large refresh. So you probably could even buy some of them used on Kijiji. But as a Humber student, you also get half price on your exams. And that's with the CIP, IIC CIP exams. And you also get a 1-year membership for free. So you do get a break on the exams and a break on the membership, but the textbooks run about $200 brand new. But a lot of students actually buy them used off other students on Kijiji.
Awesome. I also had another question here. Sorry, there's a couple of them coming in here. Someone will talk to you afterwards about their situation. And we did the salaries. Yeah. That's it for questions. Anybody else? We do have someone who's going to need to chat with you probably on their own afterwards, and I've sent a message to them to let them know that because they're dealing with their own situation. Any other questions? I have nothing else coming up, John.
Okay, so what I'm basically going to do is, Annette, I just ask if possible, if you could just place my my email in the chat function, that would be fantastic.
I'm doing that right now.
Okay, excellent. And so the last thing is I'm just going to mention is I'd ask that you please reach out to me or via email, and I'd also encourage you to connect with either myself or Annette via LinkedIn. But one thing I'm just going to leave with you on this is, don't make a decision. Begin building towards a career where you can actually make a difference. All right. And so I encourage you to reach out to me if you want to talk to me about the industry. Hopefully, I've got you excited a little bit about the industry today and about our program. But I also want to say thanks again for taking your time today to speak to me. And thank you, Annette. And thank you, Jeremy, for supporting us today.
Thank you. I think after I have got a couple more questions coming in, I did put your email address up there.
Sure.
Yeah, just someone saying they'd like your email address. I put it up there. Basically, it's john.mcneil@humber.ca, and then LinkedIn. John and myself are both under our full names on LinkedIn, and please feel free to reach out to us. How will course selection work? Are there different times to choose, and how many days per week?
So great question. Course selection, we're a smaller cohort, probably going to be looking at a smaller cohort this year. Times really don't, timing is interesting this year with fall. And the reason why is you can't really pick your times. It's typically at a set spot. But as I mentioned before, if you can't make that time slot, this year is going to offer a very, very strong sense of flexibility that will allow you, if you can't make class, it'll be recorded. Okay. And the other thing too is that a majority of our classes take place Monday to either Wednesday and the odd Thursday. So you typically always get Friday off. You never have to work. You never have to go to class on Friday. You never go to class on the weekends. And even last semester, we even had students even had Thursday and Friday off too as well.
Wonderful. We have a couple of people saying thank you for the session, that it was very insightful. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Nothing else has popped up yet, John.
Okay, no problem. So both myself and Annette will actually just sit on the just for a couple more minutes in case you have any more questions. But for those anyone else, if you if you just want to say thanks again for taking the time today to just speak to me and to listen about the program and about the industry. I will tell you, it is a great industry to be in, and it is a really great program. We go above and beyond for our students. We have a fantastic faculty, that's what I can tell you right now. I'm extremely proud of them. So thanks very much for your time today.
Is the co-op option available for this program or any internship?
So is the co-op available for this program or any internship? Well, it's a work placement co-op, right? So the work placement co-op is very, very flexible too. So you can actually start that at any time. You can start it in September. Even some of our students get part-time jobs, so you can apply your work placement to the part-time job if you want. It's very, very flexible. All you have to do is 160 hours.
Yeah, there are no other questions coming in, John.
Okay.
And it says 2 attendees in the class.
Okay, not a problem. Excellent. So thanks very much, everyone. If you have any other questions, I'd encourage you to reach out to myself via email, or also, like I said, I encourage you to connect with either myself or Annette on LinkedIn. Okay. So thanks very much, everyone. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.